So the idea that you can be, if you like, in Europe but somehow out of Europe is just not tenable. And that's the reality. You know, where the Tory policy is falling between two stools. The Lib Dems, I know a number of MPs personally who I actually admire. They work very hard in their constituency, and I respect that. But the reality is that their party is so Europhilic that whilst the individual MPs will say there's too much centralisation going on, there's too much European control, and we have to sort of check it somehow. Yes, but it's impossible because we're being sucked into a system which is beyond our control. And I have to say, I have to repeat this, there will come a time if the European Union project continues, and I hate that term, but that's what it is, if we suddenly find ourselves truly very much legally fixed to it forever, we will lose control over our own identity, and we will have no say. We won't be able to turn around and say, oh, that's just a bit too far. We will have to go with it.
Now, I just want to go on to issues of a kind of foreign policy for the moment, two major issues. One of the first issues is the European Union's funding of the Palestinian education and hate education, which is breeding a new kind of generation of terrorists and suicide bombers, and children as young as 3 or 4 are taught to become martyrs or suicide bombers, which is then creating, there's no chance of peace as long as there's hatred in their education system. And it's the European Union that are funding, through kind of Tony Blair and the UN, huge amounts of the Palestinian infrastructure, which is being used to support terrorist organisations like Hamas and others that threaten the more moderate faction of Fatah and the Palestinian Authority. What was your viewpoint on money that's allocated for peace projects such as this?
I think the Palestinian project, I'll use that as a euphemism, is disgraceful. Period.
Okay. And just moving on to another issue, I mean, you know, when it comes down to dealing with issues and looking at the whole Treaty of Lisbon, and the Treaty of Lisbon specifies that there will be one permanent president of the European Union, that no longer will have a 6-month rotation of each country, and a permanent foreign secretary, and then clearly a permanent European foreign policy, for example. Now, what is, in your opinion, those kind of things? Surely it makes sense. This is what those who advocate the European Union swore, that Europe will become stronger in its decision-making process. It will be bigger in the world to deal with problems. And one of the major problems in the world, putting aside the world economy, is the issue of Iran. Developing nuclear weapons, supporting terrorist organizations around the world, with the likes of Hezbollah and Hamas, plus also not only doing that, but also undermining the Gulf states and other Arab states, as well as threatening to wipe Israel off the face of the earth with nuclear weapons, plus also the way that they are introducing apostasy legislation for Muslims who have converted from Islam to Christianity. I mean, how would say Ukip tackle some of those huge issues on the world stage?
There, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Can I say that the European Union can trundle on merrily without us and be a force in its own right with its own president saying hopefully good things and positive things against the wrongs of the world outside. Nothing will change there. All I'm advocating, all UKIP is advocating, is that we are a nation in our own right, and we will be very much supportive of the European line in these areas, absolutely. I mean, obviously there are variations of a theme. In terms of the idea that there will be a single president and a single this, that and the other, making the whole European European Union state more stronger and more sort of relevant perhaps, all I would ask there is, where is the democracy? Where is the democracy? Who's going to vote for this top man and top woman? Where is the democracy? There is no democracy in the European Union, except that it's true within the Parliament there is a degree of debate and democracy, as I've explained. But I'm very, very concerned that at the very top end of the European Union there are decisions being made in private on strategic matters, and we have no say and no knowledge of.
Yeah, I mean, going down to probably a more personal question now, as a Christian, you know, you're not standing for this current European elections, but you want to stand as a candidate for next general election to be a member of Parliament. Now, are there many other Christians in UKIP, and have you found that your own Christian views are welcomed within the party?
I find, first of all, I know one other prospective parliamentary candidate for the Westminster elections next year, who is a Christian and a fine Christian man and very supportive of Ukip in every way, as I am, and we share together and we sometimes pray together. I will also say to you that when I knew I was having the great opportunity of coming along and speaking to you here in these studios, mentioning that to the Ukip hierarchy as I did, they were delighted and very, very positive about the whole thing. And I found a really good reception as a new party member, notwithstanding the fact that I'm a Christian. There's no prejudice there whatsoever, nor should there be. And I, as a Christian, would say to you that I respect all Christians and all their views, and there will be plenty of Christians who will be very pro-Europe. There'll be many Christians who are in the middle, and there'll be some Christians, hopefully many, who are favouring my views. And I respect that as a Christian. I don't have any sort of panacea as a Christian that one politics is right compared with another. I think I would share with you my thoughts, though, that ultimately I feel that there needs to be in this world, in God's kingdom, a real sense of justice, a real sense of allowing each of us to have a real say in our lives. And whilst we have to ultimately go through the processes of lawmaking to achieve that, that's how human society exists, I do worry immensely how this country seems to be going. And I must stress that I'm not a little Englander. I am very pro-European. But I wonder how many people who are watching us today felt that when they voted, if you're a certain age, when they voted to become members of the common market, who would have guessed? I wonder how many would have guessed that come 2009, we're talking about a political entity, we're talking about a political superstate rather than a European trading bloc. And we're just allowing the nationhood of this country to slip away. And I feel as a Christian that that is something that really has to be challenged, in the sense that, I don't want to get sensational and sentimental, but frankly, a lot of people died in two great wars. Why? For king and country, quite rightly, so that we could have a degree of say in our own lives. That's not to say we should be blind to friendship with our neighbours, but we needed to have some degree of independence and say in our own lives. All countries deserve that. And I just wonder as a Christian how right it is that our politicians, who say they have our mandate, when we challenge them and we say, why are you doing this? Why aren't you giving us the referendum on our membership of the European Union, which of course has been espoused? They will eventually turn around and say, well, it is democratic because you voted for us at the last election. We are your MPs. We are speaking on your behalf. There is democracy. I say poppycock. In this country, we voted for our MPs who have now sold us into the European Union. That's what's happened. Successive governments of different colours have gradually sold us into this European project. But you see, we give them a mandate for 5 years, and we say to the men and women who become our MPs, every 5 years, well done, we're going to vote you in again for doing a good job last time, or actually, sorry, we're not going to vote you in because we're not happy with what you've done. But suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where those folk, those MPs, our representatives, have actually agreed treaties which bind us for life almost.
But isn't there a danger? I mean, we're looking at the MP's expenses. We're looking at this current age where people are absolutely disillusioned with politics. They're saying, look, this is a totally different world from the world that I know. I mean, we're in a horrible recession at the moment with so many people losing their jobs, they find themselves unemployed. They're disillusioned, they're hurt, they feel let down, and then they hear these kind of MPs having these huge expenses, and they think, well, this is just another world. Yeah. And isn't there a danger then that some voters will then turn to parties like the BNP as a protest vote to actually punish the government? And how can you not be assured that other members, people that voters in particular, would vote for Ukip, not partly out of your views on Europe, but as a means to actually punish the government and to protest vote?
Long live the protest vote. And I have to say to you, UKIP, although it's the fourth largest party in the country, it has one MP. And that MP wasn't even elected as such at an election. He crossed over from the Labour camp because he could see the way the European Union was going. So that's the reality. So in terms of pressure grouping and protest voting, if we can facilitate changing the minds, dare I say it, of our mainstream parties. I mean, I have to tell you that if the Conservative Party in the years to come suddenly woke up and thought for itself, well, actually, perhaps the time has come to give the folk in this country a say on whether we should remain in the European Union or not, with an open mind as to the possibility that if the country really said no, it would lead us gently and legally away from Europe, UKIP will have done its job.
Okay, so it's very interesting. I mean, we've only got about a minute